Well, thanks for tuning in today. Today, I've got with me my friends Dwayne Green and Peter Chapman. So you have an American, a Canadian, and a New Zealander here to talk about the Byzantine text. And a lot of things are going on there, but I'll just let Dwayne and Peter introduce themselves. Dwayne, you want to go ahead and give us an introduction there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Pastor Dwayne Green from the Pentecostal Country Church up here in lovely Bruce Peninsula in Ontario. So we had a whole whack of snow dump on us last week during Christmas. That was a lot of fun. Not. And for all the debate that surrounded whether or not we would go to church on Sunday morning, we actually couldn't because they closed all the roads. We had 3 feet of snow. So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, I am just your regular Joe's interested in textual criticism stuff, and just recently had a bout with Texas Receptus and Byzantine, and finally came out to a decision there, which I'm excited to finally lay that to rest a little bit, and I'm excited to keep producing content on Byzantine majority, all the non-critical text stuff. So I'd like to touch on the critical text stuff because it is still kind of interesting. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Peter, do you want to give us an introduction there?
Cool. So my name is Peter Chapman. I'm an elder at the Reformed Church of New Plymouth here in New Plymouth, Taranaki, New Zealand. I first got into this whole textual criticism stuff when I was saved and I started reading the ESV, and then I got trapped by people who are into King James onlyism. And I dug my way out of that by learning Greek. And from that, I've grown appreciative of the different text types, with a critical, Byzantine, Texas Receptus. And so I guess it's hard to sum myself up now. Even though I really like the TR, I'm appreciative of all the others.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think there is a bit of a resurgence right now, an interest in the Byzantine text, and that's kind of what I want to do this video on. Peter and Dwayne and a few others have been involved in a project of getting to print a new edition of the Greek New Testament, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about, which has been primarily the work of Adam Boyd. And we found that our interests have aligned, so we're working together as a team. And that's sort of how Peter and I got in contact with one another. Peter had some computer skills, quite a bit of computer skills. In fact, I see in our chat you guys going back and forth with this computer tech, terminology, and I am just completely lost. But I love watching these computer programmers talk about all these changes, and I can't even joke intelligently about it. Like if I even knew a little bit, I could tell some funny jokes about what I see in the chat on that. But anyways, so yeah, so that's sort of how Peter and I got in contact. Dwayne and I have done a collaboration, what, maybe almost 2 years ago now,
Yeah, some
probably
time
maybe a
ago.
year.
I think you were like less than 1,000 subs when we did that. That was a long time ago.
Well, now that I have brought two men of your caliber onto this channel, I'm pretty sure we're going to surge over 100,000 with just this one
That's
video.
right. That's right.
That's the intention. No. So anyways, let's talk about this kind of resurgence in the interest in the Byzantine text. And I really want to kick off with the CBGM. So it's sort of a new method that's being employed in textual criticism. It's mainstream. And I kind of wanted to talk first, maybe Peter, if you had any thoughts on how the CBGM, this process, this methodology, has restored some Byzantine readings that were previously thought to be secondary and maybe of little use.
Yes, it's been quite a fascinating process how it's been going about, especially, I mean, you look back and say Westcott and Hort, and I'm quoting from their introduction to the Greek New Testament, where they use the word Syrian, but they mean Byzantine. They say all the readings which have an exclusive Syrian or Byzantine attestation can easily be accounted for as parts of editorial revision, and none of them have the stamp of genuineness to attest the use of extraneous and pure sources. So the pendulum was so far over there. It's like, no, the King James, there's a quote, which I don't know how accurate it is, from either Westcott or Hort, that they call it the vile Texas Receptus. I don't know how true that quote is, but it's common on the internet. Pendulum's up there. Now, it started swinging. You had translations such as the New English Bible, where they tried to use Western readings to try and correct those extremes. You had Streeter's modifications to the text type theory, the pendulum swinging further and further. And then along comes, we kind of hit the brick wall of what Westcott and Hort's theory was able to do through their genealogical method. And so CBGM came along. It's a statistical tool. Many treat it as a black box where you throw it in and out comes a reading. It's not like that. It aids the editor in making decisions. And so we're noticing that it's almost, perhaps is the wrong word, but democratized the readings. It's more stripped them from that history, which, it's from this manuscript, so it must be from that reading. The manuscripts, they're composite. You take Codex Alexandrinus, they'll say that the Gospels are Byzantine, the rest of it is Alexandrian. We don't know. We didn't staple them together. We don't know who stapled them together, if they even did
Right.
that. And so that's where I love how the CBGM, in terms of the text critical movement, it's evaluating the readings on their merit. Now, do I agree with all of their findings? No. But I love to see that sort of stigma has been removed for the Byzantine text and it's being evaluated on its merits. I disagree with the methodology, but I love how they're evaluating it on its merits.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Do you have any further thoughts on that, Dwayne, on CBGM?
I just think it's interesting that of all the text types that we've kind of grown up with, right? Like you remember reading about the Alexandrian, the Western, the Caesarean, and the Byzantine text type, and then CBGM comes in. It comes in and it sort of like does away with everything. Like all of the scholarship that we've had for the last like 200 years is pretty much, I don't want to say out the window. I don't know if that necessarily means that there aren't text types or if they're just too loosely defined to be, demarcated by CBGM. But the fact that the Byzantine text type still comes out on top and it still maintains that text type status is rather interesting. I mean, that bodes well for me. Like you got to account for that. You got to account for that. And the Westcott Hort theory was, Lucian Recension, and he's the one who put it all together. And of course, at this point in time, everybody pretty much recognizes that that's not the case. There's zero evidence that had actually occurred. So you still run into the issue of, well, how did such a massive body of manuscripts with a very similar text type end up the way it is? And for us Byzantine guys or majority guys, it's, well, that's because they were original.
Right.
But I've been thinking a little bit about the Lucian recension, and even if it was true, even if Lucian did do some editing and redacting or whatever he does, even if that was true, would he not be in a better place to edit the text than us? 1400 years, 1600 years later? Like, I don't know. Just for me, everything seems to point in the Byzantine direction, and it's very difficult to ignore that kind of testimony.
Yeah. What's interesting is as you were thinking through, you and I had a phone conversation as you were kind of thinking through, because you were kind of feeling torn between the Byzantine text and the TR at that time. And it was interesting to me how different people are kind of made up. This is just an informal conversation. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so if I were to switch my position, and that this is going to cost me subscribers, so go ahead and just ignore this if you're feeling like unsubscribing at this point. But if I had tilted one way, I would have tilted probably towards the critical text rather than the TR, even though I don't share Hort's feeling. That I think it was Hort that said that the vile Textus Receptus. I think I didn't see that just on the internet. I think Eldon Epp quoted him as saying that. So I think Epp would probably hopefully Epp got that right. But yeah, I don't share that. I value the Textus Receptus, and the King James version is my favorite translation. but the King James Version would be my favorite translation, even if I became a critical text person.
Mm.
Uh, but I think it's just the weight of scholarly opinion that would tilt me towards the critical text. It's like I don't want to be, I'm not an expert, right? I'm, if you have a plumbing question, I have training in that. But I'm not an expert in textual criticism. I try to read and learn, but if I'm just going based on arguments, the weight of the arguments, if I'm weighing arguments and not counting noses of scholars who were talking, Dwayne was talking on his channel, what he's talking about the majority text of counting noses as referring to manuscripts. I'm talking about scholars now. If I'm counting noses, then I've got to go with the critical text side. But if I'm weighing arguments, the arguments for the Byzantine text seem stronger to me than the arguments for the critical text. So anyways, that was sort of a just divergence there. But the next thing I wanted to bring up is, so you kind of, publishers, what sort of material they're putting out is significant sometimes. So when you see things in the publishing community, publishers have a keen sense for making money. I'm not saying they're all out for money, but they don't print a bunch of stuff that they don't feel like they can sell. And recently, uh, this book, which is sort of a classic in Byzantine studies, Harry Sturz, who was, my understanding was he was a professor of Daniel Wallace. So Daniel Wallace had studied under Harry Sturz, and I don't, I'm not sure if David Allen Black studied under him or not, but I do know that David Allen Black requires Harry Sturz to be read by his students. So anyways, it's significant to me that this book, which has been out of print, which I ended up having to pay $50 for, which I was pretty upset about because I bought it used, has now been put back into paperback. And it's only like 24, $25. I'll put a link in the description, an affiliate link, so I can shamelessly make money on this. But I'll have that down in the description. But what do you think about that, Dwayne? What do you think about this Harry Sturz reprint? Do you think, would you agree with me, this is a significant uh, um, publication, and what's your thoughts on it?
Oh, absolutely. I would see it like the antidote to the Westcott and Hort theory, right? Like that's what he's doing essentially throughout the book. And I haven't read through the whole thing. I've read through about 3/4 of it. It's taking some time to digest what he's saying. It's a very heavy book, but he's really meeting the Westcott and Hort theory like head on and giving you his best, and it's very very convincing. Um, but of course, this is that interesting discussion point again about how text types have now pretty much gone the way of the dinosaur in current modern scholarship view of it. But he takes on the Western text type and Hort's ideas of it being a base text for the Byzantine, and that's where it came from and that kind of stuff. But there's a really significant chapter in there, and I'm going to make a video about this at one point, so I'm not going to share a whole lot about this. But in chapter 12, now, unlike excuse me, unlike Stephen, I purchased it on the Kindle. So the Kindle's great. The only problem is I can't put flags and stuff in here. But in chapter 12, he writes about let me pull it up here. There we go. Oh, that's chapter 13. Hang on here. Oh, what's going on here? It's like skipping. Hang on. There it is. So he writes at chapter 12, the significant provenance of the Byzantine text type. So in the significant provenance, I think it's probably one of the best arguments that we have for Byzantine priority position. So I said this a lot. I'm a Byzantine priority guy, not a majority text guy, right? So Byzantine, I just find the term just, levels out where we're at, because most majority texts are not really an entire majority text. But Byzantine priority says the Byzantine type is it. Like we don't need to look outside that. We can find the original text within that. That's Byzantine priority. And so what he's making the case here in chapter 12, Sturz is basically saying that the provenance of the Byzantine text type comes from Antioch, essentially. And there would be zero reason for any scribe or any teacher or whoever in Antioch to go to Alexandria to check their copies, or to look at the Western text to check their copies. They just don't have to do that. Why? Well, because most of the books of the New Testament were written around that general area. So if there was going to be a place where the originals would have been housed, now he doesn't talk about the originals, but they likely would have been in that surrounding area. And then he makes the case a little bit later on toward the end of the chapter that Antioch was a like a place of learning. The literacy rates of people in Antioch were much higher than those elsewhere in the region. And then the sort of third and final argument he makes there is that a school of taking the biblical text literally was founded by Theophilus, and he died somewhere around 188. So from an early time. I see Peter looking that way. I'm just going to double check and make sure it's Theophilus. Yeah, Theophilus, who is I'll just read it because it's easier. Beginning as early as Theophilus, who died before 188, who, as an advocate of the literal interpretation of scripture, is considered a forerunner of the school of Antioch. Antioch developed a school of literal interpretation, which was almost diametrically opposed to the school of Alexandria with its principles of allegorical interpretation. So the idea of, an Antiochian Christian going to this, totally opposite way of thinking about the Bible to get their manuscripts, to check their readings, just isn't going to happen. So the Byzantine text, at least to the 2nd century, we know is an independent stream of transmission. And that's huge. To me, so far, that chapter there is probably the biggest evidence we have of the originals being from Byzantine.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It's interesting. And that whole chapter, I'm looking at it as you're speaking there. It's only about 3 pages.
Yeah, it's not very big.
So if you pick a copy of this up and shamelessly use the affiliate link, because obviously Byzantine advocates are all about making money. That's why we set out to do a whole Byzantine text. The whole idea here is that we're going to put it in the public domain. That way we can get rich and sell it, basically at cost, so that we can get rich. That's our nefarious purpose behind everything. So,
well, my plan was to take it and then copy it and put my own copyright on it and then sell it.
Oh yeah, so we would have, instead of having a J.P. Green interlinear, we'll have a Dwayne Green
a DG interlinear.
Interlinear. Yes. That's the whole purpose. So I put that out so that way someone who is against us, our enemies, our opponents, can take that little snippet out and say, look at
they're
these
doing
guys.
It for the
Look
money.
what they're all about the money, because so far we have all gotten so rich from this project we're working. Anyways, okay, sorry. All right, so that's Harry Sturz. Okay, I want to show you guys our good friend Matthew Everhard, and who is a friend of the Byzantine text. Dwayne's going to try to convert him, I think, to say Byzantine over majority, but I'm kind of with Matthew on that one. I like majority text, but I have to concede that Dwayne is being very precise. So,
yeah, I don't think he's going to change.
Yeah, I probably not, but I think it gets right at an idea. But in reality, so let me touch on that before we go there. I'm going to show his Matthew. I got permission from Pastor Everhard to show this tweet of his, which was public anyway. So, but I did reach out, make sure he didn't mind me sharing this. But we should be clear that whether we're talking about a majority text like Hodges and Farstad, or a Byzantine priority approach, which produced the Robinson and Pierpont text, those two texts, other than Revelation and John 8, and I think you said this in your book, but I really want to emphasize it. We've got to be talking, I haven't done the math, but we've got to be talking about like 99.9% agree. I mean, it's like unfathomably close. I mean, it's so close that, I mean, it's hardly worth mentioning the differences outside of John 8 and the book of Revelation. Is that fair? Would you guys agree with that? I know the approach is different, but the result is essentially the same, except in those two places.
Yeah, I would say so. I would
Yeah,
say so. Now, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at every single, variant between them, but I mean, Hodges Farstat is essentially is going to be a KX text, right? And then the
yeah,
Byzantine text is a KX text. So,
yeah.
so I can't see them being terribly different.
Well, I've compared the variants, and I mean, like especially like when you're talking about epistles. I mean, you're talking about one or two. I mean, so insignificant of a difference that it's. I mean, I mean, they're the same text. I mean, it's uncanny how close they are. But to take it a step further, and you got some heat over this, Dwayne.
Yeah.
You called the TR a majority text, which I don't know. I mean, that's sort of heresy. Um, probably you probably should have some sort of church discipline over that.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
but seriously, I want to emphasize this because we're talking about differences between the TR and the majority text. We're talking about 1.5%.
Hmm.
So I mean, we are talking about a now. I'm not saying that some of the differences, like the comma Johanneum, is not a significant difference. I know it is, but when you're talking about most every book in the New Testament, when if you're talking about confessional bibliology, now I'm not an expert on this, but that's never stopped me from sharing my opinion before. Um, but I would think that when you're talking about Turretin and some of the early reformed guys who are looking at textual criticism, the majority of the kinds of differences between the majority text or the Byzantine text and the TR, the vast majority of those are sort of what they would kind of consider within the parameters of what I've heard some of the confessional guys talk about micro differences in
Hmm.
the text. I'm not sure that the early writers would have said that, but they're so insignificant that these aren't the kinds of things that they're talking about when they're talking about significant variations that would make it an impure text for all ages, if you
Right.
would.
These aren't the variants you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. Peter, could you speak into that a little bit? Do you think I'm off on that, or am I pretty close?
I agree with you, particularly in terms of the reformers. I mean, one thing we forget when we're dealing with these problems is the Enlightenment. That when we're looking at the problems of variance, what is the actual TR is a common question we heard said. Um, that question's being asked from a post-Enlightenment mindset. The scientific methodology didn't exist for the reformers. They had a different set of criteria. They didn't see the variance between Haemon, Humon, they didn't have an issue with that because they're like, the word of God is still there in its entirety. They didn't need to take a Bartian approach of that the word of God's contained in there. No, no, no. The word of God is there. And so I feel too often I'll step out when debates like this are happening, I'll just step back because I'm like, people are trying to reinterpret Turretin within a post-Enlightenment mindset. It doesn't work. Turretin is hard enough as it is with his dense Latin thought to then try and interpret from this rational scientific mindset. You'll just get stuck. So yes, I agree with Dwayne that the TR is a majority text
Yes.
or
Oh,
Byzantine
wow.
text.
Wow. You know what? We should just end this call. This has just gone too far. No, I'm kidding.
You're
I've said
you're
something very, go ahead.
I was gonna say you're attracting heretics.
Yeah, what on
Yeah, we're
earth
all
is
under
going on here?
church discipline in Stephen's church.
No, I've said something very similar. I've said that every text, and I really actually got this from Rob Plummer, to be honest. I think it was in one of his, it might even be in his beginning Greek textbook. Every text is a majority text. Every text is a majority text. The critical text is a majority text like 96% of the time. The TR is a majority text 98.5% of the time. Now, pretty much the Robinson Pierpont text is a majority text 99.9% of the time. Whatever, I made that number up, but you get the idea. So every text is sort of a majority text. It's just these, it's that 4 or 5, 6% difference between the critical text. But okay, I digressed. okay, before I show this Twitter feed, any more thoughts on any of that before we move on? Oh, I wanted to come back to something because somebody's going to make us an offender for a word. Dwayne, you said you made a comment when you were talking about CBGM, and I wanted to pick up on this because I know
Oh,
you didn't mean exactly how it might have hurt. Some people might have heard it. You said the Byzantine text keeps coming out on top. We're not saying, and you weren't saying that a text produced by the CGBM, those who are using the CBGM methodology, are now coming completely over to a Byzantine text. None of us are making that claim.
no, 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 no. So no, I didn't mean that the Byzantine came out on top as in like it's the winner. I think it's already a winner. But but no, what I meant was that it's the only text type that is still, in existence, right? The Western Alexandrian Caesarean text, long gone. CBGM says we can't demarcate them, so we're not. They're not text types anymore. But the Byzantine type still is maintained. Now I don't know if CBGM itself is maintaining that. I still have some general ignorance on how that works, but I know the ECM and the new NA text brings to light Byzantine readings. And if I wasn't mistaken, I think the Gospel of Mark and the ECM actually saw 36 instances where they switched from a non-type a non-type reading to the Byzantine type. So, there seems to be a bit of a shift in that direction.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I will share Matthew Everhard's text. It probably won't be as visible as it could be if I were better at some of this. But okay, so he put this I think I called it a text, this Twitter post, and he said the majority text is thriving right now. 7 reasons why, in no specific order. And we'll look at each one of these. Majority Standard Bible launch announcement. Let's, Dwayne, you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, so I have been poking at John Isett here and there. He's the proprietor of Bible Hub, and they've mentioned about doing a majority text now, and I think this is going on about a year and a half now, 2 years. And he just finally, about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, said that they have their draft done. So there's now a draft of the Berean Study Bible in a majority text, and they've called it the Majority Standard Bible. So I'm not too sure. I like the name Majority Standard Bible, but I'll take it. I'll take it. So the Berean Study Bible, which is essentially the translation Bible Hub created, it's I would say it's pretty good. And to see that come over to majority is great. So that's good. So they're in draft now. So if you take a look at it online and you see anything wrong with it or any mistakes or anything, send it up to them because they do listen. They've changed a number of footnotes on account of some stuff that I've sent them. So they would likely make the corrections that you find as well. So do send them.
Cool, cool. That's very good. All right. So new publication of Greek majority text, Byzantine text. So in deference to Dwayne's feelings, he put Byzantine text there in parentheses. I think that's why he did that, in deference to Dwayne's feelings. In the works. So new publication of Greek majority text. So I think he's referring to the work that we're doing with Adam Boyd, who's done the bulk of this work in conjunction with Jeff Dodson. Those guys are amazing. My
Oh,
goodness.
totally awesome.
And a couple other fellows have come alongside who are equally amazing people. I tell you what, this publication, despite me being involved in it any at all, is got a great team. I mean, it is a really good group of people, and we really enjoy going back and forth and the jokes that go back and forth and all of that. But the cool thing about this, right? You can see everybody has a heart for the same thing. We want a text that's freely available in the public domain, right? What a contrast, right? I mean, the Nestle Alon text is so tightly guarded by copyright. They have threatened so many people. And can you imagine what Paul would think, the Apostle Paul would think, if the people who claim to have the closest to his wording, he's the one that did it, and they like stamp a copyright on it, like, hey, no, like what? I mean, what would Paul think about that? And I've realized that, they do hard work and their apparatus, and I understand there's a lot of things like that. I'm not trashing that too much there, but I just have to think, what would Paul think? But what a contrast. Robinson Pierpont, that text was put out, they released it freely into the public domain. And that's the same spirit that we have here, is we want to release this into the public domain. We want to get a copy of it that's durable, has a nice sewn binding, and then we want to keep absolutely 0% of the money. One of the sticking points that we have in the group right now is nobody wants to touch the money. It's true. Like, I don't want to touch any of it. I don't want one penny of it to touch my hands. Somebody's going to have to do that. We might have to incorporate somebody who has some knowledge of making sure everything's above board, because once this gets released, we don't want to make any profit on it. Not a penny. And if we do make some money on it, we'll put it into reprinting new editions of it, or we'll give it to charity or something. Nobody wants to make a penny on this. So all this work has been donated, the kind of work that's gone into this. And then I'm gushing over this thing, right? We're going to have wide margins. This is going to be usable for people who want to who have a critical text preference or a TR preference. They can pick up this and they'll have all the variants there. I really honestly think, despite the claim that people make about the Nestle text thing, that the true reading is either above the line or below the line, there's a number of Byzantine readings that enjoy something like 80% support that aren't in the apparatus of the Nestle text. So I have no confidence that when I pick up my Nestle text, that the true reading is necessarily below the line. But when you pick up this, I think I can say with confidence that the true reading is either above the line or below the line. We're going to have variants in this edition that I don't think has been listed in any other printed Greek New Testament. There may probably some exception, maybe F35, but not. You get the idea. I'm speaking in general terms here. So there you go. And as I've said before, one of the things, wide margins, no profit margins. So that's what we want for this Greek New Testament. Anybody else have anything to add? That's my sales pitch. It's not even ready yet.
No,
not ready for publication, but
we're going to cut that section out and make it its own advertisement video. That's what we're going to do with that. Speaking it with passion.
There we go.
Yeah, it's an exciting project for sure. For sure. I just get your hands on like a very beautifully printed Bible. I like beautifully printed Bibles, right? I got a whole shelf of them here. But to add the Byzantine text to that would be just awesome. So it would be worthy of a rebind.
And the cool thing is, we've got people on the team with such an attention to detail. See, I'm ready to print. Like, that's the saying. Everybody says, let's print it. Let's print it. Let's go. And Jeff and Dwayne especially, I mean, they've got this eye for detail. Spoiler alert, we're trying to get it so that we have ecthesis, so we mimic the how the actual manuscripts themselves will overhang a little bit for a paragraph mark rather than indent. That's one of the things we're working on, but there's some hangups with that, trying to get it all to work out. But I just wanted to put Tyndale House Greek New Testament on notice. I mean, they stole that from the ancient manuscripts.
They did.
But the truth of the matter is, my children I have a children's Bible there, and it's an NIRV, and it has ecthesis to it. So this is something that's been out there before. So we just want to put that on notice. Don't sue us. Okay. All right. I like his third point. He says, new translation in English by Adam Boyd. And I have in my hands right here, brothers, a hard copy of Adam's translation. Adam is a careful guy, right? I haven't gone through his translation with a fine-tooth comb yet, but having worked with him some, this is a careful translation. And he has probably one of the best apparatuses. Do you say apparatuses or do you say apparati? I don't know. One of the best apparatuses out there right now. as far as an English translation. So this is a really cool thing. Another translation. People ask me all the time, can I get a translation of the Byzantine text or the majority text? Boom, right here. Adam Boyd's already got one out there, and he's worked really hard to do that.
Mhm.
Anybody want to mention some other noteworthy translations that are out there for the Byzantine text?
Yeah, one that I always hear about, and they're always in the comments of my videos, is the World English Bible. So I honestly don't know very much about the World English Bible. I've known about it for a while. I've just never really, jumped on the bandwagon there. But it's supposedly a translation for the most part of the RP text. So Robinson Pierpont Byzantine text form, and it's a single man translation as far as I know. And then and then we touched on the Majority Standard Bible, which is another one that's being done. That one's not finished completely, but it's in its draft stages, so that's good. Now I don't know if there's any more. There might
There's
be
an
some others out
English
there.
there's an English majority text version that's out there. Um, that's one other out there, and it seems like there's one more, and it seems like it has the word analytical in it, analytical literal translation or something like that. I'll try to put a link for that down in this description. That's my cop out because I can't think of it right now. But there's at least 4 translations, and we should mention the NKJV, right?
Yes.
Because
Yep.
that's a major translation that was done in committee, and it has, even though it's a TR translation, um, it has the notes for the majority text notes. Now, having said all that, my favorite English translation is still the King James Version. I love it.
Yep.
I love the King James. I love the way it reads. I think it's beautiful. By the way, I'm doing a giveaway right now. If you're watching this before January 21st, uh, 2023, we're doing a giveaway with a Newberry Bible, and I wish I had it
Nice.
handy. I know Peter Chapman probably has that Bible, right? Peter, you've got a Newberry, is that right?
Yeah, but not the really nice one.
Not the really nice one. Okay. So I've got a Newberry, but the cool thing about that is if you're a critical text person and you still love, if you're like Spurgeon and you love our grandfather's Bible, right? That's what Spurgeon said. And I know Spurgeon's a little dated too, okay, right? He's been gone for a little while now. But but it has text critical notes in it. So the Newberry Reference Bible has text critical notes, and so you can see the major variants. So if you like the King James Version, you might sign up for that giveaway. I'll leave a link in the description.
Nice.
Okay, so there's that, and then he graciously, number 4, mentions YouTube videos by Green, Hackett, Boyd, at all. Okay, so that was nice. All right, he mentions us, Dwayne. So thank you,
Yeah. By name,
Pastor Everhard.
we're not even in the et al part where
Yeah,
we're like named there.
yeah. So we feel duty bound, Pastor
Yeah,
Everhard.
that's
If
right.
if you are watching this video, look, we're gonna plug you as well.
That's right.
Souls. He has a new book, Souls: How Jesus Saves Sinners. So there you go. We've got his plug in there.
Should have wore the shirt.
But I don't know. The one thing I will say is that it's amazing to me the interest on this subject. And I get people who will email me who are afraid to like come out as Byzantine text advocates. Like I had a pastor, he emailed me. He's not even in this country. He
Hmm.
emailed me. He says, you know what? I agree with this. I'm on board with this. I'm just afraid to come out and say it right now because I'll face repercussions from this.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow. I reached out to a scholar who is credentialed in this subject. He knows his stuff. He has a PhD in New Testament textual criticism. I reached out to him to see if I could get him on the show. His response was, "I would, but I don't have tenure yet." And he knows that if he comes out on a Byzantine text priority position or whatever, he is going to have trouble finding an academic position. So I think it's nice that now YouTube has sort of
Leveled the playing
leveled.
field.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a chance to talk to Maurice Robinson a little while ago, and he mentioned the same thing. Like for him, going through seminary as a Byzantine prioritist had its share of challenges and ridicule and such. So it seems by and far that academia has largely, said we've made up our mind. It's not Byzantine text type, and we don't want to hear anything more of that, which is really unfortunate. But like you said, YouTube allows for, we should come up with a term or something like the crowdsourcing of the work. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool. Okay, so let's go on. Growing awareness of peculiarities of the CT.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure 100% what he's talking about there, but I suspect, having spoken with Matthew Everhard, one of the issues he's thinking about there is the fact that you get these verses that exist in no manuscript. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
each one of the components might be found in a manuscript, right? But if once you piece them all back together, I take this variant from these manuscripts, this variant from this other group of manuscripts, and I'm not endorsing this vocabulary, but I think Matthew Everhard himself called these Frankenstein verses because because they've sort of been stitched together and they exist in no continuous section. So these little short sections of text, even the length of a verse, exist in no manuscript, are in the critical text. And so the charge of the Byzantine text is, oh, hey, you guys don't have any witnesses before the 4th century. But the reality is, if you look at just one verse, or take, and I'm not saying this is every verse in the critical text by any means, but if you take a few of these verses, they don't exist in the 9th century, 8th century. They don't exist in any century till they got them in the critical text. I mean, they
Yeah.
exist in no manuscript. So I think that's some of the peculiarities. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the other thing that comes to mind is conjectural emendation, right?
Ooh,
So
right.
those other passages, I can't think of the one. I think it's in Peter. The word "not" is changes the whole meaning of the passage, and it doesn't exist anywhere in the Greek manuscript tradition. Now, I mean, to be fair, I think some of the older versions have it, but there's not a single Greek manuscript with that word in there at all. Like it just doesn't exist at all in the Greek tradition. So as a Byzantine prioritist who holds the manuscript tradition as passed down from Byzantium, it's you know it it's not there, right? We don't put it in if it's not there. But to put the specific reading in the text is I don't know, it's weird. It just there's no evidence for it, right? There's nothing. I won't say there's no evidence, but there's nothing in the Greek tradition for it. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. That's good. Peter, do you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, Dwayne. In the same way, people will lampoon the critical text for the ending of Revelation. And we're in the King James, is it the book?
Yeah.
It's the
Book
book of
versus
life
tree.
in the
Yeah.
King James
Yep.
verse tree. And I mean, and yeah, that's a reading not in a Greek text,
Mm-hmm.
but it's in the TR from the Latin. And so it's lampooned and it's attacked. And I'm like, but the same, you're making the same fault. You're just arguing because you believe in your statistical method that your fault is correct. And that's where I
That's
really
right.
appreciate the Byzantine or majority text position,
Mm-hmm.
is it sort of swings away from the extremes and says, hold on a minute,
Yeah.
let's stick to the sources.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And I should have mentioned on 4, he out of humility on point 4, Matthew does not mention Pastor Everhard does not mention his own name, which has probably gotten far more views than maybe both you and
Oh,
I
sure.
together
Yeah. Yeah.
there. So yes, his work is critical here too. So I should have mentioned that. Then he's point 6, Satan's Bible chapter pushed way too far, and the TR KJV book. If one of you guys want to comment on that, that's fine. I think I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm not up for church discipline right now. So
Yeah.
anyone,
I guess some people may be wondering what that's about, right?
go ahead.
So Dr. Jeff Riddle had worked with Christian McShaffrey. I don't know if he's a doctor or not, Dr. McShaffrey, trying to be honorable for their titles and such. But they put together a book with a whole bunch of other people to just basically say, you know, why are we using the Texas Receptus? And if I'm not mistaken, the book is called "Why I Preach from the Texas Receptus," and in it was just basically a bunch of essays on why certain people do. And I've got it. I've read through. I haven't read through the whole book, but I've just kind of picked the essays that sounded most interesting to me and read through them. But there was a specific chapter in the book where was it Myers had argued, or he didn't argue, but he called the modern day Bibles he said that the modern day Bibles were based off of Satan's Bible. And and so obviously, you know, that a bunch of people didn't take that too well. I'm not going to spend some time defending or arguing against it, but that's the sort of rhetoric that had come up surrounding that book, or at least the one article in the book. So yeah, we want to distance ourselves from that kind of rhetoric, right? It's I will say this, that there is, as Christians, we believe that there is sort of this, you know, this battle between good and evil, so to speak. Not that it's you know, dualist or anything like that, but there certainly is an interest in Satan to corrupt God's word where he can. But the question becomes is like, where is that? How is that happening, and why? Um, to claim that the critical text is Satan's Bible off the bat has a number of problems with it, and I'll just say that you know, Jesus himself said that if the a house divided amongst itself cannot stand, and he's referring to, you know, those who said that Beelzebub casts out demons by the power of Beelzebub and stuff like that, basically saying that Jesus he cast out demons with the devil. And of course he had a really insane remark to that, you know, don't blaspheme the Holy Spirit. But the point is the critical text has been used by many people to preach the gospel, has been used by many people to teach good, godly truths to it. Whether you think that every jot and tittle in that is correct or not, it seems unlikely that Satan would use an ESV to lead people to Christ. So anyway, just to not say a whole lot more and get myself into trouble, watch my subscriber counts come down and all that, I think I'll probably leave it there. But that's what Matthew's referring to about the Satan's Bible. We have a little bit of tolerance when it comes to the critical text or the Byzantine text and the decisions you make surrounding that. You just do it in prayer and let the Holy Spirit lead.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I can speak for everybody who's on this call right now is that we have tremendous respect for people in every camp, right? So I think once you really understand where people are coming from, right? And that's not to justify when people go off the rails and are uncharitable, but to really understand where people are coming from. Once you understand where people are coming from, I listened very carefully to the confessional text people, and I have a tremendous respect for Dr. Riddle, and I listened a lot to some others, and I came away with a respect and realized that these are, you know, when I'd heard a TR only position, and I don't mean this pejoratively, but just quite honestly, I felt like that was just kind of way off the rails. I thought that was crazy, right? And then I met guys who held to like a TR only position who were smarter than me, and I was like, okay, well, I need to listen, right? And so, you know, so I have tremendous respect for people in the critical text camp and the TR camp, and I like all the people who are right, who are in the majority text. Kidding. All right, sorry. All right, so and then number 7, Ad Fontes' desire to recover the ancient, ubiquitous ecclesiastical text is growing, and I think he's right there. I think there is a desire. We want to value what's been passed down, and I think that desire is growing. Any comments from you guys on number 7?
Yeah, I think that was probably my one of my biggest reasons for, you know, when I was waffling between TR and Byzantine to go Byzantine, was because the readings are all historical, right? And there's readings in the TR which have like hardly any support at all in the Greek manuscript tradition, and we're talking about 2nd century on up to the Reformation. and then the Reformation up to the current day. So in order to hold to like a TR position, I would have to say, okay, everything before 1500 doesn't matter at all. And I don't even need to bother with that. And who cares? I just accept what's happened in the 1500s. And I couldn't do that because there's a history with the Greek New Testament. And to just cut off the history entirely is I think detrimental.
Mm, mm. Interesting. And again, I want to point out again, the continuity that we have with the TR position as well, because I don't think anybody on this call is prepared to call the TR villainous and vile.
Oh.
Um, um, what we believe is that the Byzantine text was preserved in the TR. The At least I do. I think that the Byzantine text was used by God during the Reformation. That was primarily what they had. And then there were some readings that were questioned even back then. So the Comma Johanneum, right? There was questions about it even in the Reformation era. Now you might uh, ultimately decide that the comma should be there, and that's fine. That's a discussion that we can have, but we have to realize that that discussion goes back all the way back into the Reformation. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
Luther, his edition of his translation did not contain the comma. So that was one branch of the Reformation that didn't take on to the comma until sometime later. And so that discussion is an ancient one. It's an old one, right? And so we're having that conversation. But for the most part, 98.5% of the time, that's what they were reading is the Byzantine text. And one of the advantages, I think, to our edition of that we're trying to produce is that you're going to be able to see those readings from the TR. We respect that tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disrespect that tradition. So anyways, I just wanted to add that in. So we're talking about the 1.5% difference between the TR. I don't like the fact that the TR and the majority camps are necessarily at war with one another, because I
Mm-hmm.
see them, for me, I see them in this broad tent of traditional text, right? The TR, the majority text, the Byzantine text, even the patriarchal text of the Orthodox Church. All of these I see as in the broader Family 35 in the broader traditional text. I think that are sort of distinct from the critical text. I think that's where the difference is, and I don't really like to see the war that goes on between the TR and the
Mm-hmm.
majority text, because I see those both as traditional texts in my view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We've gone long here, guys. I've just got two more things I want to talk about real quick. If you guys have the time, if you don't, I understand that. Okay. The other thing is we're talking about publishers. Thomas Nelson has
Mm-hmm.
reprinted their interlinear, the NKJV Greek English interlinear. I got it back when I was maybe a teenager, early 20s, something like that. Um, and now it's been reprinted in a paperback edition. So publishers don't publish things if there's no interest in them. So I take that as I mark that there's been some interest. And finally, I want to mention for those who don't know, Jeff Dotson, who is, I don't know if he prefers to go by Jeff or Jeffrey, but Jeff Dotson on our who's helping us with this project that we've been working on some time ago, did a reader's edition. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I want to tell you about this is so cool about this reader's edition is I think it's one of the only ones that go down to 50 occurrences rather than 30 or 25. So right out of beginning Greek, you can pick up Jeff Dotson's Reader Edition. And if you've only gone down to 50 occurrences, he's got you covered. The other really cool thing about this, I gush over this. Jeff completely released this into the public domain. Can
Mm-hmm.
you imagine this? The kind of work that he went to. And he's a humble, modest guy, really is, and he released this into the public domain. And I say praise God, because he's done it for the glory of God and for the benefit of God's people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's just so praiseworthy. And he's probably blushing if he's watching this right now and wishing I hadn't said it, but somebody needs to say it, because that was a tremendous blessing that someone would be willing to do this. So anyways, uh, closing thoughts, brothers. Do you have anything you want to add or say?
Say, okay, but that yellow though. Nah, just kidding. I'm just playing. No, it's great volume. Um,
I have a yellow drink. If anybody's wondering what that is, that's a vitamin drink. Everybody's sick in my house, and so I've dropped an airborne vitamin. So I have a yellow drink to go along with that yellow Greek New Testament. Sorry, Dwayne, go ahead. Just
Nice.
in case anybody's wondering if I was drinking anything bad or harmful or alcoholic. No, no, brothers. This is just a vitamin drink.
That's funny. No, but it's good, and it's exciting to see the majority text or the Byzantine text or traditional text or whatever you want to call it. So many names, to see it start to gain a little bit of momentum. So hopefully, you know, in the I think what I really like to see, which would be the most exciting thing, would be to have like a committee-based translation of the Byzantine text form. I think that would be like, you know, right on, let's do it. But I'm not anywhere near qualified to do that kind of work, right? But I don't know. Let's throw some let's throw it out there. If anyone's interested in doing committee-based translation, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Here.
But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to share my excitement with the fact that the Byzantine text is gaining some traction and some momentum, and it's sort of like a middle ground, right? I mean, we don't choose it because it's a middle ground, but
right.
you get the best of the Texas Receptus, and you get the best of what CT scholarship has to offer. Somebody made a comment on one of my Facebook posts that a lot of the Byzantine readings and such, all the collations and done were done by critical text people. So you know, we owe our critical text scholars a lot in regards to the work they've done with the Byzantine text. So anyway, so to see it coming to prominence, I think is a really exciting turn of events for the Greek New Testament.
Yeah, that's great. Peter?
Yeah, I just share Dwayne's excitement. I mean, not only through new printed Greek New Testament and other things like that, but even just people going back to the sources, people learning New Testament Greek. I remember talking to pastors when I was a teenager, and they grow and they said, "Oh no, I just memorized the interlinear for 1 John and just wrote that out in the exam." And I was just trying to get into those things at that time. I just remember like, what is that? What people do? And now we've got Mastering Biblical Languages. There's other people online offering similar courses, and you can just get in, learn the original language, and people are wrestling with these problems. They're like, I've got my UBS, but the majority text. And now that I see the readings, understand the difference, why someone could make the mistake of your or our, you know, it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
And
No,
yes,
that's
God willing, there will be another translation in the majority text.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
good.
YouTube has kind of become like the new Gutenberg press. Like it's made a lot of complicated information accessible to everyday people. Like if you
Yeah.
wanted to learn Greek, you could go find a course online and you could just go and learn it. You don't the days of, you know, having to go to university and learn a language and stuff. Those, you know, things are shifting. Things are shifting. So yeah,
Yeah.
exciting times.
Yeah, and I have so enjoyed having you guys on here, and at times I've been probably a little bit flippant, and I apologize for that. It's just enjoying talking to people that have similar interests. So have really enjoyed our conversation today. But I also want to I'd like to model the way I think some of these conversations can happen going forward. I have no desire to be at anybody's throat over these issues. They're fascinating to me. They're very interesting to me, but I'm no expert. And being able to sit down and have disagreements and lighthearted disagreements, teasing Dwayne back and forth about whether we should say Byzantine or majority. At the end of the day, neither one of us are upset at one another, and it's really not even a serious disagreement. But trying to model a path forward where we can actually have conversations where um, meaningful dialogue on these issues, and I think the majority text position offers that position. There's been people that I think sadly excuse me, have not done a good job at modeling how you can have conversations like this, that you can disagree with and still respect other people. But Lord willing, I would like to have be an example if I could, you know. And Dwayne, you've done such a great job at this. You've dialogued with so many different people and groups, and you've done It's such a charitable attitude. I just really commend you on that. And make sure you check out Dwayne's channel. And I will edit this out if he makes me, but I want to say that Peter Chapman has a channel. He told me not to plug his channel, but I am I'm going to anyways. He has a channel, and I've left it in the description. But I appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming on today.
All right.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Stephen.
Thanks a lot, Stephen.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Dwayne. See you.